The Agenda is powered by DART, Delaware's transit service, moving forward.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Agenda. That's right, another season we're starting off, and we're very excited about it. There's so many great things happening this season. I'm not even going to tell you. We're going to consider it a secret, okay? But today, no secret at all. We are fortunate enough to really start this season off with none other than the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Delaware, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall-Long. Welcome again to The Agenda.
Great. It's awesome to be here with you. Love being part of the agenda and
Thank you.
like to learn a little more about those secrets.
Oh, well,
I know you've got some really good things baking
We do,
here.
we do.
DETV is a great place in the agenda. Fabulous. And thank you for having me tonight.
No problem. Always welcome. And let's be honest, you're not a first-time agenda person. You have always been a guest here, always welcome here. More than anything, you've always been extremely honest about whatever's going on. And for the most, honestly, all of our guests are very honest. But it's great that we have access to the Lieutenant Governor, and she is always here to listen as well as talk about issues that are affecting all of us right here in Delaware. So, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and there really are a lot of issues, but I'm very optimistic, here in 2024, even though we know there's challenges. I feel very comfortable and confident with the leadership in the state and the vision and the roadmap ahead.
Yeah.
Really excited. And to the individuals who listen in, who come on and pay attention to what the work of the agenda, thank you. You're able to really help us get good information out and to make a difference, because it really is about making Delaware families stronger and healthier.
Yes, it is, and it is here at DETV. It's never boring, right? There's always something that we have to do, a message that we always have to get out. It is important to us that Ivan makes it very clear that we are service first here, and we have been throughout the time here on the agenda. But I think I'm taking for granted the fact that I've known you for a few years now, but some of the folks out there do not. Right. So I can talk about who you are. I can talk about all that you have done.
Thank you.
But I think it would be better coming from you.
Great. Well, succinctly, I think what is really important is thank you. We do have that great relationship, and sometimes we know each other, and sometimes there's little gems of information. I know when I've been here, whether in the city or down in the Sussex, my home roots, folks often forget, that the nurse professor at the University of Delaware, who has served 6 years in the House of Representatives, 9 years in the Delaware Senate, and going in my 8th year as Lieutenant Governor, they don't know that, I was raised on that small farm in Sussex, and first college generation graduate. And my grandmother, 8th grade education, but was the smartest woman I knew. And being that first generation graduate taught me a few things. But people also will say, well, gee, how did you end up being in the health field? And, I don't always go into it, but we've had conversations about trauma and life experiences. And that's what's made me, I think, very empathetic when I'm on the streets of Wilmington or the streets of Dover or the streets of Seaford, understanding people's lived experience. And for me, a couple of things, when I was an 11-year-old, my father was in a very traumatic accident. Ended up in
I did not know.
Yeah, staying in a wheelchair. Several months later, my mother had a brain cancer, and we were told 5% survival. And then a few months later, my brother, who was a teen, had stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Sheesh. So that storm brought me into the arena of healthcare. We were lucky. A lot of folks in the state haven't been so lucky with cancer. My mother and brother were able, thanks to treatment, they had to travel out of state as well, were able to live. But they've had long-lasting complications. I, have taken that journey and that trauma and that experience to heart. And so whether I'm working with a family who's experiencing loss or concern, that we can really make a difference. And so people kind of are enthusiastic about the future in Delaware and about my future, because I want to make it the best place for people to live, work, and raise a family. And so when they hear that Delaware may put the first nurse in America in office as governor, I would be that. And that nursing experience came from that family trauma, the lived experience. And believe it or not, the hospital, Jefferson in Philly, that saved my mother is where I got my first undergraduate degree. And so I share that kind of with you because it has come to my attention as I've been running for the higher office, to be the second woman governor, that people didn't know that about me.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to share that with you tonight.
Yeah, I think it's great, and it's important that people know that. My family too was from Sussex County, and I understand that some areas it's hard. It's hard. It's not a lot taken for granted. It's just not all the beach, right?
Yeah.
There are real people that live there that are there all year round doing things, and especially growing up on a farm, you're dealing with that every single day. You can't exactly walk away from it. And I know that that's what people want when they think about their governor, or they think about their legislator, or they think about their lieutenant governor. They want someone that can really bear down. I know that I joke every time I'm in my armrest of my car, I think about you and your campaign because I see my Narcan kit in there just in case, right? So it's things like that you have done. But this New Year's Eve, here in this studio, matter of fact, there was a bash. I think that's one way to explain it.
I would say a big bash, a party with a promise, a party of action. And I was so honored to be part of DETV with the Behavioral Health Consortium,
Right.
which was part of our initiative to really shine a light on mental health.
Yeah.
And the importance of acknowledging that it's okay not to be okay. And what a bash it was. I haven't pulled out the showstoppers.
It was a who's who. We had celebrities here. We had common folks. And I mean, it was really a party with a purpose, but the purpose was, and you could tell me if I'm saying this wrong, but I believe that mental health can be that silent killer, right?
It is.
It can be for so many people that are not taking it serious. And I mentioned it that night that depending upon where you are in your community, depending on which community you're in, there could be a stigma wrapped around mental health that says either it's not accurate, it's not true, or you need to get over it, you need to suck it up, or whatever it is. And that's just not the case. So it was awesome to be at a party like that where those things were being discussed openly.
Absolutely. And one of the things I found to be so true when I transitioned from the Senate to being lieutenant governor was that we had a fractured behavioral health system in the state of Delaware. And so working collectively with others, and that's kind of the leadership style I like to role model to my nursing students and to the community, is bringing people together. And that's what DETV did that night. And when we bring people together, we, listening tours, which is what the Behavioral Health Consortium did, we created some great things. We created here in Delaware the first overdose system of care in America. We have addressed wraparound services, disparities, inequity, racism, discrimination in care and access continues, and we're working hard to address that. And behavioral health, people are afraid sometimes to say, I don't feel good. Or the veteran who has PTSD and is suffering, or the young child whose parent maybe thinks they're being obstinate and they're angry. Anger can be a sign of depression. So it's really important for folks to know that. And like you, thank you for carrying that Narcan kit. One pill can kill. One pill laced with fentanyl, which is a potent form of opioid.
And the cocktails that they're putting together now are becoming more and more potent.
Narcan, spray up the nose, reversal, save a life. And so Delaware has that now. And thank goodness for parties with a purpose and other events. We're raising awareness and we have access. Nobody listening in should suffer in silence. We have programs for free. They don't have insurance. 988. The Hope Line. We are really, really, really happy to make sure that we are able to have services provided for persons. And so I'm just so happy to be here with you tonight so we can share that information.
Yeah, and having it there, and it's going out over the web, it's going out over Facebook and Instagram and all these other places. so people know where to get help. It is important. You are not alone. The Lieutenant Governor has taken time out of her schedule, very busy schedule, and we will get into the fact that she is campaigning. 2024 is here. Decisions have to be made. Ballots have to be cast, and we hope, and we were going to do everything we can for everyone here in the Newcastle County area, as well as Kent and Sussex counties, that we're getting the information out in regards to your candidate, right? Your candidate of choice. And so you can make an informed decision. And again, for the tagline, ensuring that your issues, your concerns, your topics are on the agenda, just not in your household, just not around your kitchen table, but in Dover and Wilmington and wherever your municipality is, right? So speaking of municipalities, I will say this, there have been numerous news articles, there has been news shows about the cost of housing, about reasonable housing, the lack thereof. I almost feel like it's been musical chairs, right? If you did not get a house earlier on, or you did not have a reasonable rent earlier on, pre-pandemic or post-pandemic early, the music stopped and you were out of luck.
You know, you just talked on a very important issue, you know, to make Delaware the best place, because I'm super competitive, right? Having led the National Governors Association, Lieutenant Governors, we want people to live here.
Yes.
And we want to be able to work here and raise their family. And what is important is a good paying job with great wages, right? We've got to make sure. And why? We have to have shelter. You've got to have housing. Housing is a right. Believe it or not, homelessness, mentally ill veterans got me in the dance 20-something years ago when I ran for office. My husband's military. No one should be homeless and unsheltered. When I go out every week, streets of Delaware, and I look around and I door knock and I go to the hotels, I see a child every third door. And no one should be unsheltered. And so in Delaware, we have invested the largest amount of money, working with our members of the General Assembly, the governor's office, and others, into housing. But we have a lot to do. Affordability. I want my nurse, my educator, my police officer to be able to have a home that they can afford.
Share the same zip code.
Yep, and when you and I graduated with our college career, we knew that we would eventually be able to afford a house. And we have to have those programs in place. Like I said, housing is a right. Good wages are important. We need to make sure that we have those in place, and we have to make sure we have the programs also in place, whether the resources and the stock. I'm not gonna write about land use and resource planning, but in Delaware, we made it pretty darn hard with some of our local, municipal, county restrictions that are in place.
Can we just
and we need
say
to address that?
We want Middletown to have a Wawa? Can we just say that as a Middletown resident? I'm sorry to get off, but zoning is important, I know.
Yes. On the eastern side of Middletown, there are Wawas on the western side.
Yes.
Yes, I have to know all this area of the state. Having said that, though, in sincerity, the number one social determinant in our state that I'm determined as the next governor, as the current lieutenant governor, putting a lot of energy is into housing and other basic security needs, which is good working, paying jobs, you know, and then making sure that people have that pathway, the career or the college pathway, educational access, absolutely important.
Are we doing all, and I've spoken to the governor, we had a conversation a few weeks ago at an event, and he talked about the economic development, the business side, what he's doing to bring people, to bring businesses into Delaware, and he talked about development that's happening in Middletown and throughout the state. What are some other things that people may not know, or maybe some of those things that people may not know that we are doing to strengthen economic development here in the state of Delaware to ensure that we are having those folks moving here and living here and spending here?
Right. And we need that. We need that. So we need people to come here, whether rental, having access to the homes, the good wages. And you're absolutely correct. You know, through the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, our small business office, I have been leading Black leader, faith leader, Latino leader, art leaders calls, and every one of those calls, we have the Department of Labor, we have economic development opportunities for entrepreneurship and equity. We have to make sure, so those listening in should be applying and working through our small business offices. Also, you mentioned Middletown, which is an area I represented for many years as a senator and a rep, whether it's the big corporations that are coming in, the biofarm. I have spent a lot of energy as a research scientist and a nurse, making sure through an organization called the Nimble, that we have businesses here. And what that translates into is we need everyone to have opportunity with a good, solid job. And whether it's someone working in a tech position, someone working as a custodian in a building, someone in fast food, or the individual who is behind a facility doing insurance opportunities or entrepreneur work. One of the things I'm very committed to that is essential to move Delaware's economy forward, we have to have early education, birth to 5. Absolutely critical.
And we were talking recently about commending our local high school principals, but it's just not them. It starts in pre-K. It starts before then, actually, and goes all the way up. This is 14 or 15 years sometimes of having that one-on-one interaction with youngsters, young adults at that point, and getting them out the door, but how that is also important to business development and economic development within our area. Not only to the fact that people want to move here because of our educational system, but people want to move their business here because they know that their constituents have the capacity to facilitate the work.
Absolutely, and it's really important from an equity perspective too, whether we're talking the Port of Wilmington or down in Sussex with the poultry community and agriculture, agri-science. You know, we have to make sure we have the jobs here, and early education or education in general is critical.
Absolutely.
So whether I'm Haitian Creole or I'm Latino, it doesn't matter. And we have arts and tourism is critical. You know, we led through my office the first study around, you know, the creative economy. You know, we have young entrepreneurs, young performers, dancers, young Black innovators. We need to make sure that they're having resources and come to Delaware. So if they have a very strong education system, a solid business infrastructure, housing, jobs, but also early ed. A couple statistics. You know I love statistics.
Hit it.
As a nurse, professor.
As a professor, I'm sure.
And for those listening in, you know, we have, believe it or not, from birth to 5, only 1,825 days. 1,825 days that 90% of a child's brain is developed. It is absolutely critical, whether they're exposed to trauma or families with substance use or gun violence or justice issues. We have to make sure those children have a solid upbringing, an opportunity. So K-12 is wonderful. We need to continue to have higher paid teachers. We need to have more skilled teachers in our more diverse communities. We need to change funding formula, but we have to start earlier. Did you know in Delaware, 80%, we did a survey, 80% of young families who have children between birth to 10 indicated they either didn't take a job or didn't buy a house or go back to even doing work or doing anything that would bolster the economy because they couldn't afford daycare. And so for many employers, this is a universal childcare is daycare. To me, it's equity, and it provides me an opportunity for educational opportunity. So when the cute little ones arrive in kindergarten, everyone is prepared. Everyone is in their seat. They know how to already address and maybe read a few words, color a certain way. Early education is a really important tool, and it's equity. It's really important from an equity Black, brown community perspective that everybody have that same opportunity, and we should, as a state, be providing that. It's really important.
So what are the barriers from stopping that from happening?
Well, oftentimes it's funding and programmatic issues. So in Delaware, I was pleased to work with co-leads of the Early Learning Advisory Council and members of the General Assembly and the Rodell Foundation and others where we've studied this issue.
Okay.
And I've been a Hunt Fellow, and being a Hunt Keen Fellow, I've had the opportunity to work not only in the city, out in the rural areas of our state, to look at parity, something called purchase of care, where we provide state stipends. So funding is one component of that. The other is everywhere. We face workforce issues, making sure that we have the child care learning pathway and providers. And we do have a number of centers, home providers, home daycare, but it's a matter of ramping that up. And other states have done that through different fees, programs. There are ways we can do it. And it is something that must happen in this state. Must happen.
So I know that this is going to be a big campaign conversation, right? This is going to come up again. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you're addressing those families right now that have had issues in regards to childcare, that are sitting around their kitchen tables or in their living rooms this evening, not knowing exactly how are we going to do this? What would you say to them?
To any of the families out there, I would say please make sure if you are on need and in struggling, we have a great system in our state, different systems of care, whether it's financial or it's emotional, social. Pick up the phone, call our 211 helpline. We will make connections for individuals, or certainly contact my office. Many of you know me, the undercover lieutenant governor. You see me under 95 on the streets, hitting the doors. I am genuinely sincere about that. As a nurse, I want to be that first nurse governor. And when you ask a nurse gets it done. And I want to get it done for the state of Delaware, for families, so that individuals have that access. There are different applications that we can help navigate persons through where we do have funding streams and opportunity. We have various training programs so individuals can increase their skills. Not everyone has to go to college, but we do have those opportunities. And if you have someone who's suffering at home, who is struggling perhaps with a substance use issue or a mental health issue, we do have free wraparound services available. And so I want Delawareans to know that. And we have a remarkable Department of Labor and a remarkable small business section where we want to work with innovators and others who are at home. So if it's a young family who's struggling, who needs assistance, outreach to my office, outreach to 211, we would be happy to make those connections for you so that you can elevate and get the services that you might need.
Yeah. Well, I know that if elected, you are going to fight for that. So yes. I feel very comfortable here and assure that our viewers understand that. I can honestly say that I believe that both of the candidates are very honest and believe in ensuring that Delawareans have an opportunity to strive, right? And that's basically what we're trying to do here all around, is that Delawareans have an opportunity to strive, that a fair chance to equity that you're speaking of, and it is very important. And right after this break, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about criminal justice, where equity is right in the forefront and ensuring that people get a second chance and supporting our local law enforcement. So we're going to have that conversation real quick right here on the agenda. Well, it looks like we're back from break. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
In regards to criminal justice, what are some plans that you have?
Law enforcement, criminal justice is critically important. Part of our behavioral health consortium has a whole repertoire, a whole committee that's been working on this. Those of you who've seen me in the community up and down our state know that we have worked really hard to be a model for the nation with drug diversion programs, making sure individuals who have substance use issues are not arrested but get the care that they absolutely positively need. Criminal justice, social justice, it all plays into hand. I will tell you, having chaired the Board of Pardons, and as a candidate who has led that, right now, a couple of the other folks in the race have never been at that board. Most governors have served, whether as a former state treasurer or state lieutenant governor, and it's important to understand commutations and to understand the pardon process.
Right.
I'm proud of my record. When I took over as chair, and of course, certainly you do this with the board, it's not single-handed, there was a 3-year wait for commutation and a 2-year wait for pardon. We've eliminated those waits. We worked really hard because people need second chances and they need employment right away. And so for me, having reform is critical, and making sure, working this past year with the legislators and others in our state, having the new boards that we have, both at the county and the municipal levels, making sure the advisory boards, that people from the community are heard. It is a good thing to collaborate. My leadership style, and that's what I've done, whether addressing any issue, whether it's behavioral health, whether it's economics, good jobs, workforce, climate, or justice, has been getting people in the room, getting people to collaborate and working together. And so we have to make sure that individual civil rights are upheld. I think it was great that we've put in place the new advisory boards that the community can collaborate and work with law enforcement. I also want to mention how we've worked really hard to make sure that we have provided mental health and preventative services. I shudder when I see on television a person with a behavioral health, mental health issue, and they end up having to be harmed at the hands of someone that should be taking care of them.
Yeah.
And that we have no room for that.
Yeah. I think that it's important I want to go back to your other point about someone having second chances, because especially during election time, especially when people are giving their stump speeches, it is very, very easy for them to be pro-consequence, right? Oh, I'm tough on crime, I'm this, I'm that. And then sometimes from the other side, they may say, oh, well, no, and take it easy. But I believe that it is important to give second chances, because if not, then I find that the person is going through 2 prisons.
Yeah.
Right? So they're coming out, they've been educated in prison, they've gone through job training, they've taken the necessary courses and done what's necessary while they're in prison. They're just not sitting there. They have made parole, and now they're being put out in society, and they're not even given a chance, right? So they have no choice but to reoffend.
And we have to make sure they have those wraparound services. We talk about that all the time, as a nurse, making sure that people are at the training, that they get the resources that they need. I'm not going to mention names here, but every day, almost every other day, I'm working with individuals who need to make sure that they have their Social Security if they're eligible to get it, that they have the health care, that they have the employment. And I know we're working really hard for Delaware to be that role model, and it's critically important. I know myself, when I was a state senator, worked to make sure that Medicaid services continued. We've got to think out of the box. We can't think the same. Being innovative and an entrepreneur mindset is really important, whether it's justice reform, whether it's making sure our education system or our health system. I was a sponsor over a decade ago of telehealth. I was told at that time by insurance industry it'd never work. Can you imagine not having telehealth? So it's really important, whether it's justice, criminal justice, environmental justice, women's reproductive rights, we have to make sure that people are coming together, that they're getting in a room, that we're coming up with tangible, concrete solutions that really make a difference. It's important.
I think it's very worrisome for me. This is what I am worried about, is that this election, from a presidential standpoint, is going to be interesting. I think that's fair, right?
A good word.
And if things turn out one way or another, I see that legislation will be passed fairly quickly to overturn things. So it is important that we have a strong gubernatorial candidate that is there, that support the ideas of our state.
Yeah, and having those rights. We have codified, for example, Roe v. Wade, but voting rights, human rights, housing. I mean, all of these issues are on the table, and it's really important, like you said, to have that engagement. For me, it was important, for example, with state retirees in our state. I was able to work collaboratively with a group of legislators, union leaders, and others, because it's really important for us to have good union-paying jobs. It's really important to have good, solid health care. And I was able to lead that committee for state retirees. And, we've been able to maintain their current health insurance, that they didn't have to change their health insurance. But it's having those kinds of, like you said, conversations and level-headedness and people who can make decisions.
Level-headedness, I love that.
I've been second in command. I've been in second in command and kind of ready on day one. Like, you have to be ready and understand the legislative processes. But like you said, we need now good unity, good dialogue, and thanks to DETV, and for persons like Ivan and you who are having these honest conversations, no matter what area of the families that are listening and viewing in are struggling with. We in Delaware are a good state, and we want to continue to grow and continue to make us really be that best place to live and work and raise your kids. It's really important.
I think it is important, and our communities are important. And, you've done a lot of work with the Latino and Creole communities, and we want you to continue to do that. And I'm sure that they thank you for going out there and reaching out.
Yes. Je parle bon français un peu. I don't know Creole. I know a little French, not a lot of Spanish. But I do want to say...
You've lost me already. I'm gone.
I do want to say, though, in sincerity, we are stronger together. We are only as strong as our, weakest link. And to me, it is so incredibly important that we build on our diversity in this state. And as you know, that evening here that we had our, party with a promise that night, we honored, like, Rose Simon and Love Hope Rescue, and we honored Ms. Charlotte Miller Lacey, with My Sister's Keeper,
Yes.
having that diversity, and the Haitian and Creole community, the Latino community in our state is critical. And so that's why hosting Latino Leaders Call, Black Leaders Calls in our state has been really important to me, because you listen and you bring people together and you problem solve. So whether it was a housing crisis, whether during COVID we were having healthcare issues, or whether it's an issue of needing to expand coverage of health insurance for some of our children in the state, we learn a lot by talking to each other and listening. And as a leader, that is something I have really been pleased to build on. And that is to understand how to get things done. And how do you do it? By listening and working with diversity.
I know it's not easy being a politician. I talk to them a lot. I know how hard it is. But thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for being with us here today. Thank you for giving us straightforward answers to straightforward questions.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And we know that we will see you again.
I appreciate you, appreciate the agenda, and yes, we will see each other again. And in the meantime, listening in, 211 Helpline and 988 for anyone who is feeling like they might harm themselves or others. Really important to have those numbers, 211 and 988.
Well, you've heard it here on the agenda. We look forward to seeing you next week right here. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.